Hello, I am the Story Girl, and welcome to the story of the Squire's Bride. Shout out to my friends at Wilson Elementary. This story is for you. Squire Hansen was quite a wealthy squire. Yes, he owned many fields and the largest house for many miles, and he thought pretty well of himself. But poor Squire Hansen was a widower. His wife had passed away several years before, and he was feeling quite lonely. And since he was quite wealthy, with a lot of land and a large house, he thought he was quite a catch for any young woman. And it just so happened that a certain young woman caught his eye. Olga Larsen. Olga Larsen was nothing more than the daughter of a poor farmer who works at Squire Hansen's fields. But she was beautiful, and Squire Hansen, considering him quite the catch, thought all he'd have to do is drop a little hint to Olga Larsen, and she would come running to be his bride. So one day he walked out into the fields, whistling a bit, and he saw Olga standing right in the fields. She was working very hard in the fields, raking up the hay, and looked up and saw Squire Hansen, walking up towards her with a goofy look on his face. "Oh, my dear Olga, how are you?" said the squire. "I'm very fine, Squire," said the girl, laughing a bit at his goofy face. "I was thinking about getting married," said the squire, casually. Well, Olga Larsen laughed all the harder for this, for she thought that the squire was much too old and fat to be thinking about marrying anybody. And so she just giggled and continued to rake up the hay. Didn't you hear me, Olga?" "I heard you well enough," said Olga as she continued on with her work. "Well, I was thinking that you might be the one to marry me." "Ha! Were you now?" said she, laughing still the harder. "Why, yes." By this time, the squire was feeling quite grumpy. He wasn't used to people laughing at him when he dropped a little hint. Well, for the next 2 weeks, he went and saw Olga in the fields every day and dropped not hints, but full implications right down on her foot. But she just laughed and brushed him off. After all, he was much too fat and old for her. But the squire was not to be deterred. He knew how to get to a woman's heart, and that would be through her father. "Larsen," said Squire Hansen to Olga's father, "I want to marry your daughter." Yes, Squire, yes, of course, whatever you would like, Squire. It's just that she doesn't want to marry you." "I know that, but if you tell her to do it, surely she won't deny you." Yes, Squire, of course, Squire." Well, Farmer Larsen tried for 2 more weeks to try to get Olga to say yes to the squire, but she laughed at both of them. "Of course not," said she. A fine fool I would look married to that old man." Well, by this time, the squire's temper was at the boiling point and about to explode. "Larsen, if you don't get your daughter to marry me by next week, I'm going to take away your land and your house. Just you think of that." Well, Farmer Larsen certainly didn't want that to happen to him. "Well, you see, Squire," said Farmer Larsen, I have enough money to buy a fine wedding gown for my daughter. Don't worry about the gown. I'll pay for the gown, man. Just give me the girl for the gown. Farmer Larsen thought and thought for 2 more days and finally went to the squire. Squire, my daughter needs a bit of time to decide. Here's what we'll do. You get the whole wedding prepared. The guests, the food, the clothes, everything that's needed. And on the day that everything is prepared, you send someone to come and pick up my daughter and whisk her away. By the time she gets there and she's wearing her fine gown, she'll be so startled, she'll say yes. Well, sounded like a good enough plan to Squire Hansen, so he started making preparations, sending out invitations to all of his wealthy friends, and getting the food together, purchasing the finest of fine wedding gowns. And finally, the day had come. The day had come for his wedding to Olga Larsen. He called up one of his stable boys and said, "Boy, you go to Farmer Larsen and you tell him to give me what he promised." "Yes, sir," said the stable boy, and he ran as fast as he could to Farmer Larsen's house and knocked on the door. "Pardon me, sir, but the squire is very busy today, and so he's asked if you would just send along the thing that you promised to give him." "Oh, yes," said Farmer Larsen. "Well, she's out in the field. You go get her." "Thank you, sir." And he ran out into the field, the stable boy, that is, and he saw Olga standing right there. Oh, excuse me, ma'am," said he, "but the squire's dreadfully busy today, and he sent me to get what your father promised to give to him today." Well, Olga Larsen was not born yesterday. She knew what they were about. So she laughed. "Oh, I see," said Olga. "The thing that the squire promised was probably our little bay mare over there. You see the horse? Go ahead and take it." "Thank you, ma'am," said the stable boy, and he jumped on the horse and rode it all the way back to the squire's house. Well, he tied it to the post in front of the house and walked in, where the squire was drinking lemonade with his wedding party guests. "I brought her, sir," whispered the stable hand. "Good, good," whispered the squire. "Now you take her up to the bedroom." "Pardon?" said the stable boy. "You heard me. You want me to take her?" "Yes." "Well, how am I going to be able to?" "Oh, if you can't manage by yourself, get some other men around to help you." The squire was thinking that the girl might throw a tantrum and cause difficulties. "Yes, sir," said the stable boy, and he trotted on back to the stable. "Come on, lads. I'm going to need some help. The squire is probably planning a great joke for his guests. We're supposed to take this old mare horse up to the bedroom." Well, there was a lot of heaving and pushing and pulling and clattering of hooves. Finally, the stable boy was back. "Well, I did it, squire. Such a dreadful thing. You won't have done it for nothing," said the squire. "Now, you send up all the maids to dress her in the wedding gown, and don't you forget all of the beautiful jewelry and the veil." "Pardon?" said the stable boy. "You heard me, boy. Now go to it." By this time, the stable boy was laughing fit to burst. He went into the kitchens and said, "Come on now, you girls. The squire's got something arranged for his guests. He wants you to go up and dress that mare that's in the bedroom just like a wedding bride." Well, the maids went up and they tied the dress round the horse, put on the veil and all of the beautiful jewelry, and called down to the squire, "She's ready, my lord, she's ready." "Oh, very well." And he arranged all the guests and stood at the head of the door ready to receive his bride. But what he heard was a horrible clittering and clattering on the steps, because of course this bride was wearing iron shoes. not satin shoes. And the horse came skidding and banging down the steps to the great roar of laughter from all of the wedding guests. Farmer Hansen was the talk of the town, not for any reason he wanted to, and he never bothered Olga Larsen or her father ever again. The end. I am the story girl, and I rather like this story because of the hilarity of having the horse be the bride. This story is a story about somebody who wants to force somebody else to make a choice. However, even though there was a lot of pushing on Olga to marry the squire, she decided to make her own choice in the end. Remember, you are the main character of your story, and you can use your choices to change your story however you would like. Thank you for joining the story today. I'll see you next time. Bye!